stand up for Jesus, ye soldiers of the cross. Lift high his royal banner, it must not suffer loss. From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead, till every foe is vanquished, and Christ is Lord indeed.
Good afternoon, beloved listener and viewer of our program. We welcome you once again to Rescue the Perishing. And on our Thursday's discussion, we've been talking about the existence of God. And then on the existence of God, we are asking ourselves a question for the past 2 weeks: that does God exist? We've used various arguments to buttress our point to prove further that indeed God exists, without even delving deeper into the Bible. So we use various arguments like the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the anthropological argument, and the ontological argument to prove that indeed there is a God. Now, if there is a God, our previous videos made us understand that this God will not leave us like that. Of course, he gave us writings, which we call the Bible. Most people do not understand, or most people find it so difficult to accept that indeed the Bible is from God. But then that is why today we want to come your way and bring you some findings that we have in the Bible. Because it is only God, which is the great force in the universe, that can bring forth these things that we are about saying today. What are we going to discuss today? We are going to discuss the scientific foreknowledge of the Bible. Yɛhwɛ Bible no mu a yɛhu sɛ enyema bi ɛwɔ Bible no mu. Sɛ yɛka scientific foreknowledge a yɛpɛ sɛ yɛkyerɛ sɛ there are things in the Bible even before the discovery of those things by scientists, Onyankopɔn edi kan aka deda nam edifo ana nipa bi a Nyankopɔn ɛfa wɔn so edidi Israel dom no enim ana Nyankopɔn nkrofo enim. That is what yɛpɛ sɛ is the scientific foreknowledge of the scientific foreknowledge in the Bible. Bible no eye ana aka nsɛm bebree even before the discovery. Na no ho nyema bi na yɛbɛpɛ sɛ yɛbɛtwetwe ɛho nkɔmɔ. See, we've listed like 10 of all the numerous scientific knowledge ɛwɔ hɔ no, foreknowledge ɛwɔ hɔ no. We've listed 10 ɛno na yɛbɛdi ho nkɔmɔ ɛnde ewie. And you are welcome again. Ti nyabre na be stress ube follow program no eye na the lesson eko no wonso wo de wadwen ediechi na ewiye ne yabehunu say ye nipa na betimi atro sa anyema we ana say it is behind a divine force be, and there is a greater person behind these writings. That is what we want to let the program no lead us to. So please let's start, and now let's begin with. Yabesha here with food. Share your mind we see mukra Ghana. Yawo emra and a body be a share the regulatory status of yenduane ni enru yenom. We have the FDA. Nyankopon emra oyi Israel for every Egypt. Now odi wonu efa esreso na odi won kobosha asase friend the Canaan no. Or the onenim echeche omunyeme bi wose omudi na eni kwan se wono edie. Na mepe se yebekenkan ho ne adi ho enkomo kakra bi. Leviticus chapter number 11 verse 3. Whatever divides a hoof, thus making split hoofs, and chews the cud among the animals, that you may eat. Hanomno Leviticus, Moses in a church and Homer Leviticus ye part of the Pentateuch mo friend the Torah no. Na Nyankopon inspire Moses emane etro nyema we. say emmoa a omo nan mu apaapai saa mmoa no ene wo say mudi na omo san so epu wono eduane esan so edi ebiom no eno mmoa no ene wo say omo hu ye be hu say those animals omo yes anyaman are ruminants. Ruminants mmoa omo chew omo cards. Now what are ruminants? Omo ye herbivores. Herbivores are animals and omo ye ruminants omo chew omo card. And ye be hu say leaves and herbs and so good for animals and humans as well. We eat them and emfa or how ni problem be a embrace. The twas on ye share 7 the verse 7 to 8 now. Obeche nyeme bi wo ha en wo se yedi. And the pig, for though it divides the hoof, thus making a split hoof, it does not chew the cud. It is unclean to you. Ha, Nyankopon still by inspired word out the man Moses. Tell me say, pig there, or divided hoof. Nanso, it does not chew the cud. Yesha peka, pig is an omnivore. Bibibia odi. So, even the carcasses of dead animals, obedi, everything bia edible, odi. Yaba be who say, because of that, pig has the tendency or the high probability say obe containing a lot of microorganisms, which are disease-causing organisms, are pathogens in the body and on the skin. It also it is even forbidden to touch. So the Israelites were forbidden to touch the flesh of pigs or yet even think of eating them. This yeki na the discovery of bacteria was not there because Leviticus was written 1415 BC, 1415 BC, before Jesus Christ, and it showed the book of Leviticus. So it was prior to the discovery of bacteria. And so now Nyankopon has instructed Moses, say, these are the things you have to do. Now, why? Why these instructions? Yabehunu say, pigs are omnivores, and their body system, they have a tendency to keep these pathogens, disease-causing organisms. And let's not forget, say, Emra, that Nyankopon issued that command. They were traveling. They were strangers in a foreign land. And Nyankopon eyomefio ediyako omo promised land, as I friend Canaan. The population of them was enormous, like 2 million people, about 2 million Israelites. They don't have a permanent residence. They were living in tents. So imagine a big number of people living in tents in smaller groups. Not there is a disease and an outspread of disease. What do you think will happen? They will all contract that disease and die eventually. This cannot be the wisdom of man, because man at that time did not know this small particles, organisms, cause disease or render humans extinct. Yes, I so hona. Ocheye enyeme bi about the sea bodies. Now say those with scales you should eat. Those without scales you should not eat. Leviticus 7:8 hona echeye sa. You shall not eat of the flesh, nor touch their carcass. They are unclean to you. This you may eat, whatever is in the water, all that have fins and scales, those in the water, in the seas or in the rivers, you may eat. Verse 10. But whatever is in the seas and is in the rivers, that do not have fins and scales, among all the teeming life of the water, and among all the living creatures that are in the water, they are detestable things to you. And more after the omu the omuni fins, no muni scales, no. Yes, Bible say, ma wano endi. A typical example, ebe oyster. Before even yebehu sa, you say oysters ekita and they develop some bacteria be in them when temperature rises. So even in certain parts of the continent, there are some months be where they don't advise say you just take oyster and then you start eating raw oysters like that. Your bacteria be a friend of the vibropharyngiomyeliticus. Vibropharyngiomyeliticus. Vibrovinylficus. Wenum nyinaa ɛyɛ pathogenic bacteria oyster, aboa oyster ɛwɔ. Ɛnyɛ ɔno nko there are a lot of sea creatures be almost need scales and fins almost possess a lot of these bacteria, which can hurt humans. Say yedisa and yemaya. These are knowledgeable things be Moses did not know this, and I wouldn't have known this if it is not by a divine or an intelligent creator. All man of these instructions. So this is the first thing you behu ewa. Now, also how to treat those things. You should not touch it. It's detestable. They shouldn't touch it at all. Also 29. They said Leviticus 11, the verse 29, 31. Or show the creeping things, or also lizard specifically. So lizard and those things now, they creep, they should not touch it. Yababe who say any amphibian or reptile has the potential to carry the shared salmonella, which is a bacteria. A war unsa ubetimi a transfer edi akọwenum anase baby ama you can die of it. Until you even told them say even if they come and they are on their utensils, they should just destroy those utensils. So these are things Nyankopon ehunu ye ana onim na odema Moses ma odema Israel for no. So they were living healthy and they were able to journey their way through 40 years on the wilderness. And sana omodru boshe asase no eso. The next one, that's why you share the germs and diseases. A doctor who lived in 1846, a friend of Dr. Agnes Semmelweis. Now, Dr. Agnes Semmelweis. This doctor, Dr. Biana, or deliver babies from pregnant women. Now, or realize say the death rate so bebre. Now it was spreading across Europe. Now, ohunu bibi say they were all practicing a common thing What were they practicing? Before they perform autopsy and now they perform surgery, they will all go and wash their hands in water in a bowl. Now, the towel all of them, the practitioners were doing that. And he thought it said, why is there high death rates? Not death rate cost be. So upon the findings, a lot of people even brought up beliefs from the miasma. I actually say it is a bad woman be in a war, but I say the bad woman cannot be in all the hospitals across Europe. So, some things be. What did he do? Later, say, then we should all wash our hands under running water, and use clean towels to wash our hands. And if a dead body dies and so on, we should remove adibiara what dead bodies or make sure the bed spread and our bed sheet there dead body no that's one and the diseased person that's one and sana when he did that regulations the death rate plummeted to between 1 to 3%. Initially it was booming around 13%. But even before that, God had already showed the Israelites how to deal with dead bodies. When we read Numbers chapter 19. Numbers 19, verse 6. Numbers 19, verse 6. And the priest shall take cedar wood and hyssop and scarlet material and cast it into the midst of the burning heifer. The priest shall then wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterward come into the camp. But the priest shall be unclean until evening. The one who burns it shall also wash his clothes in water and bathe his body in water, and shall be unclean until the evening. Now, Yeba 11. The one who touches the corpse of any person shall be unclean for 7 days. The one shall purify from uncleanness with the water on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. Now, why did the Bible say we should put this cedar wood and also hyssop and then scarlet material in a burning fire and use the ash to prepare what we call the purification water? Now, it was this purification water in the priest ne obi biara a or share that wood no ebe ono so ebe oro nsa na wedware. That purification water, now we now know say when in preparing soup we need an alkali, and an alkali a base, and ash is a base. So God's recipe for soap production was found right even as early as the time of Moses. Ayetro Numbers chapter 19 verse 6 running down. So God knew say there are some things on a dead body. It is transferable from dead organisms to living organisms. So he gave them, say, if you touch the body of a dead body and a dead person, you are unclean. These are all regulations and Nyankopon Edema Israel for. Moses wouldn't have known this if it was not given by a great person behind it. And if it was not an intelligent being, if it was not the creator, he wouldn't have known this. So this is what Dr. Agnes Semmelweis discovered a boy, even Onumpono, he did not get that glory. It was after his death. If you Google and search, Obon says after his death, Kran Obehun say, okay, then what this doctor was saying was the right thing. All this while, we were passing bacteria, we were passing germs from dead bodies to live bodies. Say the rapid death rates are not air. So this is the second part. Now, the third scientific foreknowledge, in Leviticus chapter 17, verse number 11. Let us read. Leviticus 17, verse 11. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls. For it is in the blood by reason of the life that makes atonement. Ibehunu say, for the first sentence, the life of the flesh is in the blood. Nipa enkwa eti mojem. The Israelites knew this already, and now Moses, through the inspiration of God, wrote this thing down for the Israelites. Mombehun say, the life of the flesh is in the blood. Enkwa eti mojanum. Scientists did not know this thing. Where even a renowned person, George Washington, died of this. People had the belief say disease homogeneum. So if we drain the blood out of a human being, then we restore new blood into the person, then the person could live. This was done, and then George Washington died as a result of this. So even before the discovery say ampa, now we have red blood cells, and within the red blood cells, is the red blood cells that carry oxygen. And nipa without oxygen, we can't survive, because it's the red blood cells, and it transports oxygen to the various cells in the body. So now, even say Yembe discover say we have something called red blood cells that carry oxygen. God knew that, and it is found in the Bible. So if this thing is found in the Bible, it can't be human. It is by an inspired person, and it is from a great person. In all the way, a brain, a great force, a great spirit, a thinking being. In a funeral, it can't come from any man, but rather from God. This is part of the scientific foreknowledge. Man cannot know this. Man cannot know this. Now, there should be our Genesis chapter number 2. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Genesis 2, verse 1. We would hear a lot of reading today, because share the Bible no. Now you want to say, indeed, the Bible is not just an ordinary book. The Bible is not just an ordinary book. For man cannot just write these things down thousands of years before the discovery. No. Let's look at Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus, the heaven and the earth were completed, and all their hosts. Enyema aewo osoro ne asase nyina no ya yewie. Complete nature say it is finished. What does the first law of thermodynamics ekatre? The first law of thermodynamics says that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. This passage I read you, Genesis chapter 2, verse 1, say indeed Genesis approved all this while. The first law of thermodynamics on Ansana Yebe discovered the first law of thermodynamics. So it was even there in the Bible. But because we don't regard the Bible to be a divine book, the Bible to be God's book, man have not delved deeper to look at these things. The first law of thermodynamics agrees perfectly with the Bible. Everything has been created, and nothing can be created again, or nothing can come out of nothing. Boom. Everything is done. And Genesis account on so that is that. And you share Psalm 102, verse 25 to 26. And so I did Psalm 102, verse number 25 and 26. And of old thou didst found the earth, and the heavens are the work of thy hands. Even they will perish, but thou dost endure. And all of them will wear out like a garment. They will wear out like a garment, like clothing, thou wilt change them, and they will be changed. Now, what is this passage trying to tell us? Let's look at the second law of thermodynamics. See, I shared the first law of thermodynamics. The second law of thermodynamics is talking about entropy. So the entropy of the universe is increasing with time. So when we take the universe as an isolated system, with time, the entropy, the degree of randomness, the entropy, just say, the earth is going in chaos. The degree of randomness. Say, things are changing within the earth. And the psalmist Amaya Behu in Psalm 102 and Psalm 102, verse 25 and 26, actually say, things are changing, but God endures forever. He is an unchanged being, or no can change. So, the second law of thermodynamics is agreeing with what the psalmist said way before even the discovery of the second law of thermodynamics. And this passages agrees with the Bible in Genesis chapter 3 verse 17, Romans chapter 8 verse 20 to 22, Hebrews 11, Hebrews chapter 1 verse 11. And so it says the universe is aging and is growing old. So all these passages in air conforming and now is agreeing with the second law of thermodynamics. Air say the degree of randomness and the entropy of the universe is changing. The scientific foreknowledge of the Bible. So David writing this passage wouldn't have known this if it was not inspired by the Creator. Let us look at the next one. The expansion of the universe. In Job chapter 9 verse 8, Isaiah chapter 42 verse 5, Jeremiah 51 verse 15, Zechariah chapter 12 verse 1. Honyinara train say the universe expanding. Me pese ye be ready Jeremiah 51 na yahwe eho no eyi. Enti it is he who made the earth by his power, who established the world by his wisdom, and by his understanding he stretched out the heavens. So Jeremiah 51 verse 15 says God stretched out the heavens. Even scientists did not believe this, and Einstein was one of them until in 1929 this scientist Edwin Hubble discovered proving or show the Hubble constant. Say indeed the universe is expanding. So he brought up a theory. We say the further the universe is expanding, the faster it is moving about. And the Milky Way, the Earth is part of, it's really expanding. Jeremiah, by the inspiration of God, has already said that in the Bible. Jeremiah 51 verse 15, Job 9 verse 8, Isaiah 42 verse 5, Zechariah chapter number 12 verse 1. Edikan aka we deda until even the discovery. Now, Job and so eka adibi. Job chapter 38 verse number 35. Job 38. Job 38 verse 35. Can you send forth lightnings that they may go and say to you, here we are? Now, even before we know, there has not been anything about light. But Job, as I said, the Bible is an inspired book in it. Job knew, and now Job was inspired to write. Say, now we know, say, light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. And within the electromagnetic spectrum, we have different forms of waves. The radio waves, the microwaves, the ultraviolets, the X-ray, the gamma rays, and we now use this in our form of communication. So even before the discovery of electromagnetic spectrum, Job, in the book of Job, chapter 38, verse 35, will say, there is something called electromagnetic spectrum, an electromagnetic wave. You use it for communication. Today, we take our mobile phones and we make calls in the same country and even overseas. But it was even in the Bible, long or way before even its discovery. So these are things that man with his knowledge wouldn't have known because it was not discovered. But because an inspired book written by God, man wrote it down. Here's the next one. Solomon, inspired by God, wrote in Proverbs chapter 17. Proverbs chapter 17, verse 22. Proverbs 17:22. A joyful heart is good. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. And there, doctors and physicians will tell you that put a smile on your face. That when you put a smile on your face, you increase your health. And wapumudino shemukina, laughing is a medicine. But even before this was discovered, God, through the inspired word, gave this to Solomon. Show Edmund say, joyful heart is a good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. This cannot just come from man. It has to come from an intelligent creator. It has to come from an intelligent being. And we want to tell you, sir, that person has to be God. That person has to be God. Let's look even at the shipbuilders. And the shipbuilders know, say, when you want to construct a ship, the length should be 6 times that of the width. How did they know that? Because they had that in the book of Genesis. Genesis chapter 6, verse 15. But Noah was building the ark. When Noah was building the ark, God gave him specific measurements. Look at the primitive age, and now that time Noah building the ark, and how buoyant ark etie. Yet that ark did not sink, but rather it was sustained on the water. Kopim say it dried out. That should not come from a mere person. It has to be someone so intelligent and knowledgeable. And we are saying that person is God. The last one, the AV and Deno. Yebehunu ewo Genesis chapter 17, verse 12. That will be the last one I did. And I heard then etre. Now Yebehunu say God commanded Abraham to circumcise newborn males on the 8th day. Now, it was recently, later in the 1935, in a professor, I friend Professor H. Dam, a proposal saying there is something called vitamin K, and a vitamin K in a boa emma the hemorrhaging effect what chicks move is easy, and I prevented the oozing of blood what chicks move. Yebehun say this vitamin K is responsible for the production of prothrombin. Prothrombin a blood clotting element. Now, you prate the upra and now you a cut on your body. Your body or the blood has its ability to clot. Kata the surface of the wound. So it will prevent further oozing of blood. Now, this was discovered by the doctor say it is on the 8th day that the production of this vitamin K in human a newly born person at the 8th day it is over 100%. So at that time although there will be oozing of blood, but it wouldn't be so excessive and so much say the newly born baby the blood is will now go or will not die out, because at that time prothrombin has been produced, and the production of prothrombin has been so excess in that newly born baby. How can this be possible? Look at the time, Genesis chapter 17 verse 12. It was later discovered say prothrombin you produce vitamin K is responsible for it. And in human beings, Udru the 8th day, then your vitamin K, has been the production, it drew 100%, it drew the peak. That is wonderful. Man can't bring this up. At that time, man did not have that knowledge. It was God who instructed Abraham to do that. And Abraham did so. Beloved, there are a lot and numerous scientific foreknowledge in the Bible. And reason with this, say, don't believe, say, the Bible is just a common book written by ordinary men. Of course, for you, they might be ordinary, but the words and the things that are in it are not just ordinary things. For man cannot just write these things like that for us. And then we find these things and it is working in our time. We bring some discoveries and they are consistent with what is in the Bible. It cannot just come from man. It has to come from an intelligent being. It has to come from the Creator. And we want to say, indeed, the Bible is from God. So, skeptics, atheists, polyatheism, and all pantheism, are more doubting the existence of God. No? We are using this opportunity to reason with you, say, the Bible is indeed a wonderful and an inspired book. For man's knowledge wouldn't have been able to write all these things down. And don't forget, say, Bible, it was written for over 40 authors. And it's so wonderful, say, over these 40 authors, they are all moving with a central theme and all moving hand in hand. And they were all not contemporaries. They were all not living at the same year. Look at the time Abraham spent his life. Moses echoed about him. How can that be possible if it's not from the Creator? The Bible is not just an ordinary book. It has scientific foreknowledge even before the discovery in science. And this cannot come from man, but rather from God. Spend time with us again on Rescue the Perishing next week as we come your way once again with people have this doubt that indeed, okay, it has scientific foreknowledge. Everything is pointing and say, indeed, there is a God. And indeed, there is a God. But then, how then, or why should we suffer if there is God? That is a question. But then, we will find your way and answer that question next week, God willing, when we come your way. That if there is indeed God, then why suffering on this earth? God richly bless you for staying tuned with us. Don't forget, like and subscribe. Help in propagating the gospel by sharing to others also, so that the gospel will spread, people will know the truth, so that the truth will set us all free. God richly bless you. Bye-bye.
From victory unto victory, his army shall he lead.